Okay, so I had now achieved, basically gone from level 50 to the higher 500s in a matter of 4 years. And I was back, I had completed my first hero's journey cycle, and I was back in the city and trying to live a normal life again, and not really being part of that spiritual community that I talked about in part 1, because I felt that was the right thing to do, and I needed real world experience, and I wanted to like live a more regular life, and these kind of things. At least I thought so, but that didn't really turn out exactly that way. But anyway, I was back and I felt great. I was blissed out all the time. I was basically mostly staying for myself because I felt so good when being alone. I was going for walks, amazing walks around, the city and outside of the city and mountains and whatnot. I was just feeling great, sitting around in parks and being blissed out and sort of halfway perceiving into 4D reality. Like everything was extremely beautiful. Like look at flowers and plants and whatnot. I could sit many hours and just absorb the plants and the beauty of the gardens in the city and whatnot. And I was also a student at the time, so I had a lot of time to do that. I didn't really, I could do anything I want. I didn't have a job or anything. I could just do my study stuff, and I could go for walks. But it was hard to fit in with the other students and, just regular people after going through all that and being at a much higher level than the norm level. So basically, I tried to be a regular student and do normal things, but it was difficult. And but the point is, this was just the beginning of a new cycle, which was even more challenging and even worse in many ways than the first one. And eventually, after some years of bliss and these things, the bliss faded away gradually. And that's when the real problem started, because when the bliss faded away, it sort of exposed me, or it sort of left me with these core woundings that I didn't know I had. I mean, they were basically buried at the deepest level of my system, right? And they suddenly started to come into view or come up in my system. And I didn't know what it was, because I thought I had already healed everything. I didn't understand. Nobody teaches about core issues. Nobody teaches about early childhood traumas. I never heard about that before. So I had to learn the hard way, because my enlightened teacher and my mentors and guides and whatever, they never talked about this on my journey. I never encountered anything about this, not from books, not from anything. So I had no idea what was going on. I just didn't understand why. Where is my bliss? Where is my amazing? No, I felt like great for 2-3 years now, and now it's suddenly gone. I mean, I felt like something had gone wrong, or I didn't know what to do anymore. And at the same time as this happened, more or less, so I basically felt like pain or something in my chest all the time, so to speak. Like something wasn't right. And at the same time as this happened, I also got sick again. Then I had been free from the eczema and the problems with my gut for so many years. So I thought that was long gone, but now it all came roaring back with a vengeance. And I got really bad, and I had eczema all over my body again, and I couldn't work. At this time I was finished with my studies and university, and I had gotten a job at a factory. It was like not really a job that was my level of education, but something I had to take temporarily to basically survive while I was looking for something better. So I had this job, and I got sick, and I couldn't work for 2.5 years, more than 2 years, because of this eczema and all these things. I got problems again, and this time the cure didn't really work. I mean, I did the same routine as before. I started eating only that boring meals, the boring food, and going to chiropractic treatment every week, and it just went on, and it never really, the eczema just moved around on different parts of the body all over time. It didn't really go away, and I had a horrible digestive problems. I didn't go to the toilet for many weeks, like 2 weeks between each bowel movement, many times, like it was crazy. Like, and it was really, really bad, and it just went on, and I didn't know what to do anymore. I couldn't obviously function socially. isolated myself because I didn't want to go out or anything because I looked horrible, I felt horrible, and I just stayed at home, and luckily I had a lot of TV series to watch because I'd neglected all the famous HBO series like The Wire and these things. I just binge watched all of these series that I never watched before, luckily, and so I had something to do and fill my day with, and I just went for walks. If I felt good enough to do that, I went for walks, and it all was really, really bad for some years. I tried to make the best of it, but it wasn't fun, and eventually the cure, the regimen I followed started to work eventually after more than 2 years of this. So I sort of I came to a point where I sort of gave up and surrendered to it, like, okay, this is my life, this is how it's going to be, I can't do anything about it. And when I did that, it started to gradually get better, but not really all completely good. So eventually I got my first ET intervention at this point. I woke up early one morning, like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I thought to myself, okay, since I'm awake anyway, I might as well try this out-of-body technique, where you try to your body falls asleep while you try to keep your mind awake, so to speak, and that's what I did. And it really worked really quickly this time. So immediately I heard this electric crackling sound in the walls, and then suddenly 4 ET beings were standing around my bed on each corner of the bed. And this was like in a half dream state, but I was fully aware, alert, and everything. It's like you have this lucid dream kind of situation going. And the ETs, they looked like grays or something like that, I don't know. But they just telepathically said to me that they beamed some energy on my gut, like for maybe 5-10 seconds, vibrating my gut, and then they said telepathically that now you can eat anything you want, it's going to be healed now, and no problem anymore. And and then it just disappeared, and I woke up to the reality again, like the real reality. And I didn't really trust them enough to not. I continued to eat the strict diet even so for a while, and then eventually, within a few weeks, the eczema was gone, finally, after 2.5 years or something, and then I started to gradually eat more normal food again. But I still keep this diet to this day, like a basic diet. I still try to keep it most of the time. But anyway, that was a big new taste of new confrontation with the core issues, the really bad. And then I got an opportunity, which was my next catalyst for a new hero's journey cycle, which basically was a job in a different country that I've never been. I've been on holidays abroad, but I've never been living outside of my home country before, so this was a big deal for me. And I took this job, and I went to that country, pretty far away from my home country, which is a Nordic country, right? So I got this job, and I had no idea what was meeting me down there, and but the problems remained. The bliss was mostly gone, and I still had the core issues in my chest and all that stuff going on in the background, and I didn't understand, which basically made me drink more and more heavily, because I couldn't really fit in with the company I worked with. People were much younger than me, most of them, and the environment was different, and I couldn't fit in. It was difficult to fit in. So I kept mostly to myself, and I spent the weekends binge drinking alone most of the time, because I was filling this inner vacuum that I didn't know I have, this core wounding. I was coming up in me, and I was drinking really heavily, and basically staying awake all night drinking, starting Friday evening, drinking 3 bottles of Prosecco or wine, and then in the morning I would start drinking beer until the shop opened, and then I would go buy more wine and Prosecco and whatnot, and drink that the whole Saturday. And then on Sunday I would crash completely and just sleep until Monday, and I had to go work again. So I would have pretty bad Monday and Tuesday, and then okay again on Wednesday, and then I just rinse and repeat on the next Friday. So that became my routine almost, because I didn't know what to do anymore. Then I met in this new country, I met another enlightened teacher actually. And I tried to get help from him, but he was one of those teachers who have not really been through that much himself. He just got what I call a bypass or a spontaneous enlightenment at a pretty young age, and he was like 5 years younger than me. So that made me realize, hey, why is this guy enlightened for doing very little compared to me? So I got sort of not jealous, but I got sort of shocked. Like, I thought everybody at that point, I thought you had to go through a lot and heal everything to actually get enlightened. So it was a shock to me to realize that, hey, somebody can just get enlightened for doing nothing almost, and at a younger age than me, having gone through nothing compared to me. That was a big shock to me, but I didn't really care that much as long as I could get help. And I did get help to a certain degree from him. I mean, his energy field helped me. It helped me open my crown chakra, which actually happened like a spontaneous thing in a session with him. It was like a champagne cork just popped off the top of my head energetically. And he actually commented on it because he can see energies. He could see 4D energy, so he knew that it had happened. But even so, even with all my chakras functioning, I was still not in non-duality or enlightenment. And and things. The problem was I had like private sessions with this guy, like once a week at least, one-on-one sessions. But the problem was, even though I got blissed out in each session with him, when I got home or after the session, I felt progressively worse and worse. Not like little bit, like it went away. No, each week it get worse and worse and worse progressively. Like, I just became worse, feeling worse and worse inside. And I realized later that it was because his energy field brought up these core issues, my core woundings that I haven't healed. He brought them up or provoked them in me all the time, which with each time I was exposed to his Buddha field. So it didn't really help me because I couldn't heal those things. But they got provoked, and they made me feel worse and worse until I basically spiraled out of control, and I couldn't handle any more sessions, and my drinking escalated even more. And at some point I just became, I just sort of gave up, and I left to a faraway country again, another country, because I could work remote from my job. So I took that opportunity and I just went on a crazy self-destructive. I mean, I basically left in the spirit of a suicide because I didn't know what to do anymore. I had so many sessions with this guy. He never told me what the problem was. I tried to find out. He didn't understand it because he has never healed any of that stuff like himself. So he couldn't really pinpoint or tell me what it was. I didn't get that information from him. And each session made me feel worse and worse progressively until I completely lost control of everything and just spiral out of control in a self-destructive way. And I went to this country far away where my plan in the back of my head was basically just get into some kind of drunken accident and get killed, because I didn't want to commit suicide, because then they can tell you that, hey, you committed suicide, you have to go back and do the same again because that's how it works. I didn't want that bullshit. So I thought, okay, up to them. If I just do my crazy stuff here and I die, then it's not my fault because the higher mind couldn't take care of me. So that's on him, not on me, because I'm just dying because I had some accident. So I went on these reckless, drunken, crazy nights where I didn't even know how I got home, and I lived far out from the city center, so I had to take like taxis and motorbike taxis and all sorts of stuff. I could have easily have been robbed or died, but that didn't happen. I didn't know how I survived all that, but it was a pretty crazy time, to say the least. Although it was also really fun. I mean, I had a lot of fun, but looking back now, I mean, obviously I was completely crazy. And this went on for some time, and then eventually I had this major ET intervention, which I detail in another video. I'm going to recap a little bit here. I'm going to link to the full. If you want the full details of everything that happened in that ET intervention, you can watch the previous video I linked to below. But I'm going to recap some of the highlights here. So anyway, after I went, at this point I was up to like drinking like a big bottle of whiskey every night, basically, like starting 4 o'clock in the evening and collapsing on the couch and on the bed at some point, and then waking up and doing my job. I worked remotely, right? And that became like a routine. And then at some point I got this idea that maybe I have to stop this. This is not going to work in the long run. So I basically stopped cold, and I had a really bad night of hangover, a horrible, couldn't sleep full night, detoxing from all that. And the night after I didn't feel that good either, but that's when something happened. I got what I thought was a stomach flu, but it was actually the ETs interfering with my gut. So I had emptied my whole system, because usually they will give you an anal probe because the fear you get when you get abducted to UFOs, you can basically shit yourself up there because of that. And they just took care of it up front. So when I was 2-3 hours into this, I was finished and my system was empty. I went to bed finally, and as soon as I hit the pillow, I closed my eyes. This massive crystal clear screen manifested on my inner vision, and on that screen I could see myself having a private session with Daryl Anka and Bashar. So I was basically standing in front of Daryl Anka, and he was sitting there channeling Bashar, and I was asking him like 10 questions or something. Unfortunately, I could never remember any of the questions or the answers after this happened, but I know I asked a lot of good questions. I got good answers, but those answers are lost. Unfortunately, I never remember them. And after that was finished, they telepathically contacted me and said that, hey, I am Bashar, and you want to meet us. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Meet you? I mean, I'm in bed. What are you talking about? Like, this was a little bit. And then they said, yeah, no problem. I mean, you can be at 2 places at once. We're going to take you out of the body, and the body will remain in the bed, and your energetic body will go up to meet us. But the problem is you have some darkness in your heart that we have to help you with. But don't worry, we can help you with that. But it's very important that you focus on your heart area and manage your fear, because we're going to take you up energetically into the UFO. And you have to manage your fear, otherwise you can't get into the UFO even. So that's what I started to do. It took me out of the body, so I was basically 2 places at once. I could still sense myself in bed, but I was also on the way out up towards the roof of the room. And the fear just got worse and worse. So I had to really focus on my heart area to manage the fear. It got worse and worse as I got closer to the UFO, the threshold. And eventually they got me inside. I got up and down a few times, and then I got inside, and I was like I had a blurry vision of things going around, beings moving around me, like in a hospital kind of setting or bed. And they were operating on my heart area, doing something. I don't understand what they did, but it was super intense. Like, I felt like a worm in a frying pan, because energies of these beings are so much higher. So it was really hard to manage it and stay up there. And then they came to a point where they said, okay, we are 80% finished now. We take you down now. We can continue to finish the rest tomorrow. And then when I got down again, or out of this, basically it was already morning. So I lost a lot of time. And then I just had to do my day job. And all the while I was talking to this ET contact, that called himself Bashar. I don't know if it actually was the real Bashar or whatever, but it definitely was ET/higher mind involved. And he allowed me to ask any question I wanted. So I asked all these questions and got answers all the time, like really quickly, like immediately, every time I asked a question. And he would even help me do my job, like correct certain things I forgot and these kind of things while I was doing it. And basically it was back and forth all day with this conversation until I was finished work. And then he told me, then I asked if I could see a UFO, because I never seen one. And he said, maybe, but if you go to the beach now, you will probably see something. So I thought I was going to see a UFO, but not really. That's not really what happened. As I was sitting on the beach and whatnot, and suddenly there was this big guy dragging along his little kid, buck-naked kid, like 4 years old, and he was hitting him hard on the behind. The kid was crying already. And this put me in a state of shock, like I couldn't move. And the being of the ET or whatever told me, like, okay, you're in a shock now because your father did the same to you when you were like 3 years old. And I'm bringing this energy up in you now. You have to heal it. And then basically I got this enormous pain snake coming out of my heart or my chest, like the size of an anaconda snake, energetically just coming out and out and out. It felt like, I mean, it was horrible pain, and it felt like it took forever. Like maybe it was like 2-3 minutes, I don't know, of pure pain facing for like 2-3 minutes. And then when I finally, it left me for good, it sort of left me, it was gone. He told me to run into the sea and swim because you're gonna release. And then I just did that, and I burst into tears because that was all stored up from that early childhood trauma of my father hitting me when I was 3 years old. So that was one big healing that I could have never have done on my own if he hadn't told me what this was about, if I had no context. If this just came out of my system, out of the blue, I would have been too scared to be able to heal it. It was too massive and too insane. And it was even, I mean, he had to cheer me on in the background. It was so bad. And when I was finished, he said that no being has ever healed that much pain in one sitting. So I basically broke like a universal record of pain facing and healing in one sitting from that thing. And that was not even the worst of it, because there was one more thing, the mother issue. And so basically later in the evening, after I went home again, I was sitting on a couch and had a girlfriend at that time, and she's sitting next to me, right? And she had no idea about any of this. He told me I couldn't tell her because she would never understand, and it would interfere with her life path if she knew about these things. So I could not tell her anything. So it's basically sitting and watching a movie to have something to do, like to distract, so I could continue to talk to this ET with telepathically, like, right? And then suddenly he says, like, okay, you healed your father issue, but now there is the mother issue. And then he brought up this pain in me, and it was like even worse, but this time it was like a sphere that was surrounding my whole body and pressuring me down, and feeling like the worst ever pain I ever felt in my entire life, much worse than the one on the beach. And I was just encapsulated in this pain, completely absorbed in it. Like I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. And I tried to like look normal and not scream or be too freaked out, and I was sweating bullets at this point, right? I was super scared. And then he's saying to me, like, if you don't face this now, it can go on for all night. In fact, it can go on all week. It can go on for months if you don't face it now. And I'm just sitting there like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm just, out of it. And I'm half thinking I'm going completely crazy, right? I'm doubting everything. And in that moment, he says to me, what if I'm not Bashar? What if I'm a demon? And that moment I was like, I felt like I was dying, because I thought I had gone completely crazy, right, at this point. So I just sort of fell back and just surrendered to it, like, okay, I'm done. I've gone crazy. I'm gonna die. I just fell back in the couch, and then finally the whole pain disappeared. Like I just surrendered to it, and that's why he said it, obviously, to push me over the edge. So I surrendered to it, and then it finally left, and it was healed. So that it was, there is no way I could have healed these things without that intervention. There is just no way. So, that's how I managed to heal my deep-seated core traumas, core issues back in November 2019. I went through what Bashar has talked about as the eye of the needle, and he told me that millions of people were supposed to go through the same, presumably in 2020, because Bashar talked about this. But the Darlanka version of Bashar, he said that at some point, he said that in 2020 everybody will have 2020 vision, because they will go through the eye of the needle. And that's what I went through in the November 2019. They said I was the first to go through it, right? And by 2020 vision, he meant that you will get enough information to see, to sort of understand what your life has been about. And that's what I'm laying out in these two videos, like, my whole path, because of these two core issues that I had to work with my entire life and finally heal after almost bringing me to the brink of suicide. That's how far it went before they interfered. And I could have never have healed those things without this interference, which sort of leaves me in I don't know, like, what is that about? Because all these teachers, including Bashar, is saying that if you look deep enough in yourself, you will find happiness and you will find beingness and contentedness. And here I am. I spent my entire life looking as deep as possible, and all I found was this bedrock of unhealable core issues that I couldn't actually have healed myself. I needed an insane alien intervention to actually heal. That sort of leaves me with a little bit of, I don't know, like a bad taste in my mouth, so to speak, because what's the point of going through all that stuff that I went through if you only find the unworthiness complex and the core of it, and you can't actually heal it? I mean, on your own, because all enlightened teachers, they have been granted a bypass long before they get to even close to these kind of things, right? So I'm pretty unique in the history of the planet as far as I never read about anybody who has healed these kind of things. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just, laying out the facts because I'm just being honest. I'm just all for the truth. I'm telling the truth as it is, take it or leave it, do whatever you want with it. This is what happened, and it leaves me with a little bit of, I don't know how to say it, because should I teach people to do the same, to go that far, or should I just tell them to go stop in the 300-400s, because that's, then you don't really have to go through that craziness that I had to go through, right? So I dug all the way to the bottom, and I found a bedrock of unhealable core woundings and traumas that I could not have healed on my own. And I had tons of private one-on-one sessions with a fully enlightened teacher at level 1000, and he could not help me either, because number one, he couldn't understand what I was going through and what was the problem, because he was granted a bypass long before he got to those issues, if he even had them. And number two, his energy field was not enough to actually heal those things. Even if those things would have come up with no context and no explanation, I would have been too scared to able to handle it. So the only way I could have healed those things was exactly the way it happened, right? With the ET intervention and this ET being, or my higher mind, telling me what was going on and giving me a context, so I was understanding what was happening, because this was the most scary stuff I've ever experienced. So, that's the hero's journey. You're cycling around your core issues, going deeper and deeper until you crash into those core issues. And obviously, if you have less severe core issues than I have had, then you might be able to heal them on your own. I don't know. I don't really know. I mean, there's no very little record or no record about these things happening to anybody as far as I've found. So I'm just being honest about this, and this was my hero's journey, my two major cycles, which ended up with a major death rebirth moment. And then after this death rebirth moment, when healing those core issues, obviously I got better. I mean, I didn't find beingness, I didn't find contentedness, I didn't find enlightenment, I didn't find non-duality, I didn't find true happiness, anything like that, by healing these deepest issues that there is. I mean, basically installed when I was 0 years old, right? So even that is not, even healing yourself to the bottom like that is not enough to find non-duality and beingness and these things. All I found was, I would call it okayishness, or more like, a more stabilized version of who I used to be before. No, not so much craziness anymore, not all that drinking and craziness like I had. All that sort of faded away quickly after I healed those core issues. But still, this is now, I'm like 5 years later, I've integrated now for 5 years. I'm still not in non-duality. I'm still in the lower 600s on the scale. I'm still on the borderline of non-duality. I'm not, but they told me I would be a fully enlightened teacher and a world teacher at some point in the future. He didn't say when. I will make the jump into enlightenment levels at some point when the timing was right. He didn't specify when. So, but anyway, after this, I returned once again to the world, and I created a YouTube channel and whatnot, and now I'm sharing my elixir of wisdom with as many people as I can, and in my book and ebook and everything, I'm trying to help people as best as I can, and do what I can to use my experience to help other people, and that's what I've been doing. So that's basically my story in a nutshell in these two videos.